welcome back to the Leeds Lens for the second time as we do the Leeds United versus Sunderland opposition preview. And we have got a Sunderland fan on today as well. How are you doing on, as I said, this fine Monday? And I can say that because nobody else has heard that except me and you for the start.
No, I'm still good. I'm doing all right. I am, maybe after a little bit of chat between us, a little bit more confident for tomorrow. But at the moment, there's a little bit of a grey shadow looming over the starting 11 for tomorrow. Roof's potentially injured, as per a few reports on X at the moment. But adding to the already fairly extensive injury list that we've picked up over the last couple of days. So nervy.
Yeah, for any Leeds fans that don't know about Sunderland and their injuries at the moment, you are really struggling with it. Can you sort of talk us through the players that are sort of in and out of the team at the moment in terms of injuries?
Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy one. As of about 10 days ago, there were a lot of, I guess, positive conversations saying we're just on the verge of, for the first time, having our starting 11 fit and ready to go and, for the running of the season. Fast forward about 4 or 5 days, and we've now got, Reynaldo and Sirkin, both of our starting left-backs out. They will be out for tomorrow. We've now got Mukiele, probably our top 3 player for this season, out for 2 to 4 months. Robbie, number one, 2 to 4 weeks, I should say. Robbie out for 2 to 4 weeks. Mundell possibly out for the season. He's just had a hamstring surgery. Tarby may also be out for the season. He's actually also had to have surgery. And then there's even potentially 1 or 2 others that I'm forgetting, in addition to Roof as well. So practically the core of the team decimated in the last 10 days. So we've now got, albeit a strong starting 11 still, and I'm not going to be too disappointed with whatever gets put on the team sheet tomorrow. It's the impact off the bench now that is severely lacking for us, I think.
There's also a rumour going around that Jaca might be a bit of a doubt for the game as well.
So as of a press conference that happened 4 or 5 hours ago, it was that he was okay. But if I was Reggie Labrie, I also wouldn't say, oh, yes, by the way, our best player's out. So, you never know. And he did receive a particularly bad ankle-high tackle from Tyler Adams, one of your ex-boys.
Yeah, maybe he's done it on purpose, get him out of the game for Leeds. I doubt it. I think he hates us.
Agent Adams. No. So look, that's probably the biggest one. The goalkeeper who we have as second place is basically fresh into his professional career, a limited number of games, a few Europa League games, albeit, but very little in the way of an intense atmosphere like it'll be at Elland Road. So fingers crossed he's not overawed by it. But statistically speaking, he's like a like-for-like replacement for Roof. He's just not quite.
Just not the experience of Roof, yeah. Because obviously Patterson would normally come in, but he went out on loan, didn't he, I believe, in January.
Sod's law, that, isn't it? He leaves. Can't get a minute on the pitch, and then next thing you know, he probably would have been in the team. But to be honest with you, he's a very good Sunderland servant, but he's limited in the way of Premier League standard distribution, potentially even handling and cross taking. So he would have been up against it either way with the directness of the way that you guys play as well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a bit about the one thing I did want to mention, obviously, with this being an away game for Sunderland. And this will be a conversation we've done before, so we'll have to roll with it. But I wanted to talk a bit about your away form, because I think it's kind of like us in terms of we've both been fantastic at home. Obviously, you guys were brilliant for a long time and unbeaten for a ridiculous amount of time. But you've always, I feel like, throughout the season, struggled away. A lot of it. Do you think that's fair? And can you sort of look at the sort of reasons behind that, really?
Yeah, it's definitely fair. It seemed for the first 6 months, or maybe 4 months, that our away form was ordinary. It wasn't particularly exceptional, but it wasn't particularly. I mean, it wasn't crap, but it was probably 13th or 14th. And then it went to January, and we were still digging in for these results. I think we got a 1-1 at Spurs. That was particularly impressive. We came back from a goal down. And then we went away to Brentford and we missed a penalty to go 1-0 up. And then from that moment on, it just seemed like our away form just decimated completely. It's a strange one. I don't know if it's also a mentality thing that we, at that point, were around about confirmed as being up. It would have at that point be a disaster for the remainder of the season to lose out to a West Ham or whatever. And I don't know if there's an element of complacency that comes in there away from home. I don't know if it's the intensity of not playing at the Stadium of Light, because you can feel it in the ground, you can see it in the players. They feed off of that, and potentially going away to a quiet Brentford Stadium. Are they struggling to get up for the game? I don't know, but there's probably a bunch of factors that stop us from being quite the same force.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention as well with that, because obviously I think you've scored limited goals away from them as well. I think you've scored 8 all season, but away from the away form as well. Is it fair to say that your form has, in terms of results, I guess it has dipped off as of late? Obviously, Jaca has been out injured for a period of that. Is it just a case that Jaca's injured, or do you think there is a more core maybe mentality thing where you almost know you're fine now, and that's why the season's dropped off, or do you think it is just as simply that Jaca's been out?
It's a tough one, that. So yes, it's definitely because of Xhaka. The difference in the way we play is immediately noticeably different from the moment he steps on the pitch. I don't know if it's the orders that he gives out and the way that he almost acts as like a conductor of what is a really young side. I also think there's been a few interviews of this where players in our squad have said that they're somewhat scared, or there's an intimidation element of letting him down. They want to perform for him and they don't want to be on the end of a bollock, and for the want of a better word. So I see him very much as a general. I also think he is world class, and I think you'd be somewhat incorrect to say otherwise. His statistics across basically ball retention and forward passes, even when he was at Leverkusen, were sort of top 15, top 20 in Europe at an elite level as well. So you can't deny that he's a big factor. But I also think, truthfully, it's been a culmination of it was a long time coming. Basically the effort that the lads who didn't go to the AFCON had to put out to basically keep those points ticking over. There was a downward sort of, I guess, fall after that point. And, you can't be too harsh on these guys. They were ran into the ground, and we don't really have a Premier League bench. So players of like Chris Riggs' ability, Luke O'Nine's ability, they just weren't really given that chance to come into a starting 11 in the Premier League. And I think the likes of Mukiele, for example, have potentially got injured off the back of that. Xhaka probably was overworked as well.
Yeah, no. One thing that I sort of have noticed upon is obviously you did mention sort of the AFCON and the sort of lack of really effect it had on it, but maybe an effect in terms of the output. Obviously, we played you in that AFCON period. What were your thoughts on the day when you watched Leeds that day? Were you impressed with us? What did you think we brought to it, really? Just from an outside looking in.
It was interesting. At the time, I remember saying to my dad that I thought you were the best team who came to the Stadium of Light at that very moment, okay. Which was funny. It seemed like the first few home games that we had, we caught teams at just a fantastic time. At that time, Brentford weren't firing on all cylinders. West Ham were significantly worse.
Villa was West Ham on it as well at start season.
Yeah, Villa were also terrible at the time, and then went on a 12-game winning run after they played us. We were somewhat fortunate, and then you came, and it was the first time that I think we caught a team right on their game at their peak moment, and it was just after you drew with Liverpool, I think, and there was another big result that you'd had that week, or at least in December anyway, and then you came to us and you had a little bit of swagger, and if we had our full strength team, I don't know if we might have just edged the game, but you were very good value for that point there at least. And, if you could play even slightly like that, plus the Elland Road atmosphere and whatever else, I mean, I'm not going to be overly confident that we can get a win, never mind a draw, for example.
Yeah, because I think on that day, from what I remember listening to sort of Sunderland fans talk after the game and stuff you saw sort of on Twitter and stuff like that, and there was a lot of praise for Leeds. Now, I think naturally I think Leeds fans have naturally praised Sunderland this year, and sort of maybe Sunderland fans have praised Leeds fans because we're both like newly promoted clubs and we're sort of almost like anti the Premier League because we're trying to sort of break into it and stuff, and it's almost like us two against the rest as such, because Burnley kind of haven't really given it a go with the greatest respect. But I did see a lot of that. I actually thought in that game personally that it was more like a sort of physical. I think in the first half, I think we probably give you too much of the game, and obviously I think Jaca got on the ball, and that's where the first goal came from. Because I remember Adingra scoring actually on the day, who was obviously not there anymore. But it did look more like a sort of in the second half. I think we sort of got to grip of the game a bit, and then we showed sort of our physical power, and that's something that that we've continued to do kind of since, and that's kind of one of our key strengths. We're not a team that's got unbelievable quality, but we're a team that sort of, as I said, has got lots of big physical profiles in there that do sort of dominate in that capacity. How have you found this season Sunderland up against them teams? Because obviously in that game, to me, from the outside looking in, it looked like that's maybe one of the things you've struggled with. But was that the case?
No, I can't say I particularly have seen that trend, because we've went toe to toe with the Arsenals of this world. Even in the FA Cup, Everton had a really big side, and then we ended up beating them, but we were on a look for large periods of the game. Alderete and Ballard at the back are fantastic at doing that sort of.
I think Ballard was missing that day, if I remember rightly. I think
he might have been, and it was they're great at that old-fashioned style of defending that you maybe described there. I think we've become a little bit more susceptible to set pieces than we have been earlier in the season. I don't know what in particular has caused that, but we aren't as good as we were defensively in the box now. Earlier on in the season, yeah, we were great, and I think we potentially did fairly well against Leeds. In this instance, I've got a little bit more apprehension just because of what I've seen over the last 6 weeks, and we conceded a corner against Fulham. We've conceded a few of the set pieces, and I don't know why that's creeped in, but it doesn't match well with the way that you play. So that there's
that's one of our key strengths, you see, set pieces and getting the ball in the box, long throws, all that sort of stuff. And thankfully, what we're playing at your ground, where you put the sort of the advertisements in, doing so you got your proper long throws.
We stopped doing that. We did it for about 2 or 3 months, and then we've even took Mukiele off throw-ins, and Trey Hume was taking them. I'm not really sure what that phase was about, but we've stopped it.
Mukiele's got a long throw on it, I believe.
Yeah, he hurt his wrist, unfortunately. So he had to pass the butt over to Hume, who's just got about a quarter of the throw. It's not even worth doing it. But no, I think we're suited to in theory, we're suited to the way that you guys attack. We should be able to defend that well, but in theory, you are just a kind of a specialist in that particular way of attacking, and that might just ultimately rule it out a little bit. You might nick it on basically that being your specialty.
I think what was interesting actually in the game earlier in the year, we go slightly back to that as well, was we've played a 5-back religiously since the 29th of November when we switched at Man City. But actually in the game against you guys, Roden, I believe, got injured earlier in the game, and we took it off and we went to a back 4. And that seemed to work. So I'd be interested to see actually on a Leeds end if that's something that we do again, because since that point we sort of build out in a back 4, but we defend with a back 5, and we've got like sort of 3 centre backs on at all times and sort of 5 defenders as such, if you will. But I will be interested to see that. I sort of want to get more perspective though about Sunderland's season now. Presumably you feel that you're out of the relegation battle, but what is the aim for Sunderland now for the rest of the season?
That's actually a really tough question, and I think, supporting Sunderland for 27 years has given me a natural pessimism that I need to try and.
Don't think you're going down, surely.
No, it's not even that, but it's nothing to do with relegation. It's more so we're 3 points away from 8th, which I believe is a Conference League position, and at the end of the day, with that kind of distance between the two boundaries, you should think, let's go for it. Let's try and get European football. I don't see it being that way. I also am apprehensive of getting European football without a European squad. I don't know if that will have that knock-on effect for the next year. So the FA Cup is something I want us to take very, very seriously. And if there's one thing that I am going to kind of hang my hat on, I want us to get to Wembley. Even if that is a semi-final, I want us to take that seriously. At the end of the day, if we were able to get in the top 10, I'd be overjoyed. If we finished 12th, I'd still be overjoyed. If we were 8th, I'd be booking my tickets, and I'd be checking for my passports in date and whatnot. But there'd be that whisper in the back of my mind saying, "Are we really going to be able to go to FC Cluj and Borisov on a Thursday night and then still be able to get a draw or win at
Yeah, because
Elland
they're all
Road.
struggling out. Like Palace have struggled this year, Forest have struggled this year. You do worry about that sometimes, don't you? Like, is it worth getting in Europe if it means that you might end up going down because you can't deal with the games? Because obviously you've established yourself this year, but it can be all different next year. If one of the teams is good again next year, one of the newly promoted teams, then it can start quickly switch, can't it, naturally.
No, I agree. And you can only really look at the other teams who've been in similar positions, and the likes of Brentford, for example, and also the likes of Brighton, who did get Europe, I believe, one season. They didn't go straight into Europe. They didn't have one fantastic season. They built over a number of years and kind of kept that going. It's probably more long-sighted than it is short-sighted, but I wouldn't mind this season just being somewhere between 9th and 12th, and then a very good cup run. Who knows what we could do in the cup, and then reassess next year if we have that ability to get in. And then by the time you actually do get into Europe, if you were to squeeze eighth, there'll be your third season in the Premier League. At that point, I'd think,
you should have that. Yeah.
Have a squad. But it's a strange conversation to have as a Sunderland fan. I don't think this conversation I have never ever had in my entire life, talking about if we could get Europe or turning down Europe. So I feel like I'm being a bit ridiculous. Like somebody will clip me or quote me and say,
you're close enough to the point where we've got to have a conversation, surely.
No, exactly, and that's maybe what I'm talking about with the sort of Sunderland PTSD and the pessimism. But I'm always positive. I always think we'll do better, and I actually, to be honest, have faith in the ownership for the first time ever, which is probably what leads me to say maybe in a year or two we'll still be in the same position, and it won't just be a flash in the pan.
Yeah. In terms of, so if you guys are out the relegation battle now, I think the Leeds fans will be interested to know who does a Sunderland fan think is going to go down to the Premier League this season. I think I would say that you're thinking Wolves and Burnley are gone. But who?
Yeah. 100%.
But who do you think will be the last team that drops?
It's interesting that. So I'm definitely somebody who is on the side of form and momentum over, oh, well, that player is a little bit better than that player, so they'll just end up switching it on and being good. I think West Ham are in a really nice spot. Similarly to you now, they've had a consistent run of games. I know Liverpool was a little bit ropey on their side. Anybody can go to Anfield and concede a lot, to be honest with you, but I can see them catching Forest. I really can. I think that'll definitely happen, especially without the fixture congestion. I just, everything about Spurs stinks. The players, for me, prima donna style players, they don't seem too bothered. I'm not a massive fan of the interim coach vibe with because he seems that the Tudor fella, he seems like a bit of a ball breaker, quite hard European type.
Yeah, he's come out and already quite criticised him and basically saying the crap already. I'm like, mate, that's the last resort, surely. You've only been managing 2 weeks.
Exactly. And then you've seen videos of Van der Ven ignoring him on the side of the pitch. And I'm like, disconnect between player and manager, disconnect between basically entire staff and then ownership, fans on side. It has all those hallmarks. If that was Brentford, for example, I'd be putting my money on Brentford. It's just because they're in the Champions League and Spurs are a theoretically top 6 club that I'm maybe not going sort of all in or on the jackpot. But I honestly think it'll be Tottenham. I do at this point. Yeah. No, I know it's crazy.
So say put Leeds in it then. If you were to rank the chance of going down between all of them, who's most likely, and then second most likely, third most likely, and fourth? If that makes sense.
So I've got to say, I think most likely is probably Forest, but I think it sounds weird to say, but if I had to actually analyse it, I'm probably going with Forest. The squad's worse. There's too much sort of managerial turmoil. There's so many fixtures. It's crazy. With Spurs, though, I have a hunch. So I'm going to probably go Spurs, Forest, West Ham. I actually did think that Palace looked like they were on some sort of collision course to doom, but I don't know if that's the same anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if it finished Palace below Leeds.
So you really don't think we're going down there at all?
What we speak about is momentum, form, fixture congestion, players, you name it. I suppose I don't know the ins and outs of Leeds squad. There's no, in my eyes, like horrible gaping injury gaps at the moment
No,
with you guys.
we've only got one guy out at the moment. We've got Okafor out. That's it. The Jamie's just in touch and go, but even if he misses the Sunderland game, we'll be back next week or whatever. So
yeah, 100%. And you didn't lose anybody in January, which would have understood. I don't think that would have been the case for any of the sort of promoted sides. But form, squad, injuries, momentum. I just don't see how. Those things don't change that quickly. We want a limited amount of games left. You need to be looking at the people who have things that can't change. I just don't see how a Spurs or a Forest change that bad feeling and that momentum, which is why those two are my candidates. And I think Spurs might just be a little bit more toxic than Forest.
I think that's the benefit we've got at the moment. We talk about this. I think we've got quite a good group of lads at the moment in a roundabout way, and I think there's, because we're more expecting to be where we are. I mean, we're probably expecting to be worse position than where we are going in the season. I think there's just such a nicer feeling around the club. Like, everyone is quite happy and optimistic at Leeds at the moment, whereas it's just not the same at the other three clubs at all. They just can't stand their owners, they can't stand the players, they just can't stand the club, in truth. And I do think that's paying dividends at the moment. And I think we're churning out. At times, I think we've got to play well to get results just because of how it is, whereas I think other teams have maybe got individuals like Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson that can pull it out the bag. I don't think we can do that as such. But I do think we've got much more team spirit. We've also got the best fixtures as well. We've still got Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Brighton at home, yourselves at home in truth, Brentford at home as well. There's enough winnable games there, surely, for us, really.
100%. Oh, yeah. I honestly don't think you're in the conversation. I don't. I know it.
I'm like you in terms of, I'm a bit like, I'm usually positive, but in my back of my head, I just don't be too and say it, and then it all goes tits up. Like, if we lose tomorrow, I will be cacking myself, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, that would be a bad loss. Would be a bad loss. If you were to win, though, which I'll be honest with you, with our injuries, is more probable than losing, you've got to imagine you're set in stone there for the next year. But no, I'm the same. I don't like to speak anything into existence. So I'll wait until it's mathematically possible for Sunderland, and I'm sure you'll be the same.
Yeah. So if we're talking about score predictions, then what is your prediction? So how do you think the game will actually go?
That is the hardest question. It's so I honestly thought we'd get swept aside by Bournemouth, and actually, well, for the
you
first
were pretty
half
good in that game. I watched you all, and I was slightly worried actually, because I was hoping that Jaca was going to come back in and not change you, and I felt like he came back in and you were much better, in my opinion. But that's just me.
No, we were. Objectively, we were. I mean, the games before that, we played some really on-form teams. Fulham are absolutely flying at the moment. That was a tough
West Ham
game.
have got them next as well away. So
yeah, Arsenal and Liverpool are just Arsenal and Liverpool. You can lose those games. So I wasn't really crying my eyes out about those. But Bournemouth was one where I was like, this could probably be a bit of either rude awakening or a test of our solidity. And to be honest, we were good. With Mukiele being out, it's actually it's meant we've had to change the way we set up the team, which is basically Geertruida playing at right back, who's more of a out and out right back, not so much of an attacking threat. And then what we had been doing was playing Hume in basically a right wing position.
we
which
do that
is
with
bizarre.
Bogle almost in possession. Yeah.
Yeah, but from my knowledge of Bogle and what I see of him, he's got way more in the sort of attacking end than Hume does. In fact, Bogle might do well in a Southern system, to be fair. But what it's meant now is, with a proper right back in there, we're now playing like proper forwards in the right wing position. And actually, we moved Lafitte to the left and we had Talby on the right. Traore's back now, I believe, although there was a talk of him being a doubt. But he might come back into the side. And that's actually the first time where we've got probably good balance. And it's actually been injury forced, which is ironic because Mukiele's class. But yeah, it's a strange one. I can imagine we might actually do all right if we're in this formation, because we'll be defensively solid. We won't create a lot of chances. I don't see that coming at all.
So do you think you're going to come there and almost just like, do you think you will come there and almost park the bus in a roundabout way? Like, you'll be sat in, you'll be expecting us to have the ball and us to try to break you guys down?
So I think we'll try to play exactly how we played against Bournemouth. The difference being, Bournemouth would rather play triangles, and they'd rather play sort of, I guess, slide rule balls,
You want
maybe
to
a
get on
little
the
bit.
ball, yeah.
But the difference being is when Bournemouth had an attack versus when you'll have an attack, yours will be much more direct. And I think naturally we will be forced to show up in a more of a low block style than we did against Bournemouth. I don't think it'll be a tactical thing. I think that'll just be a
Like
product
a game
of the
state almost.
way that you play.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we are probably more able to break. And with Brobby out, it's an interesting one, but Mayenda came into the team. And Brobby is a battering ram. He's unbelievable at holding the ball up. I'm not one
I really
to
like
kind
him
of.
actually.
I'm not one to over-egg players at all. I'll call a spade a spade. He is very, very good. And the difference being is he's probably not that useful playing against you guys when we're breaking. He's not got that speed to run through. We may even play Isidore just on like a stylistic sort of point of view. But if Mayenda plays again, which he probably will because he scored, he's a lot quicker and a lot nippier. So I wonder, actually, is there a possibility for us to break better than we did at Bournemouth and score? But the game state may dictate that we just have to dig in big time, which probably
we're going to. I'm convinced we'll go for it. I don't think we won't take a draw. Obviously, being at home naturally, and with the situation we're in, this is obviously naturally one of our winnable games. So I think we'll properly go for it. I think the first half an hour will be all over you, in my opinion. I mean, we were like that against City, so I would expect somewhat similar against naturally weaker opposition in you guys.
I wonder though. So we had this once or twice where you play a top side like that and you give everything, and then you've got to play another side 3 or 4 days later. I mean, look,
I know what you mean. The only benefit we've got is they're both at home, so they're like Fight was talking about that today, and he was saying, look, they've slept in their own beds, so they've slept hopefully better, and because we've played 2 home games, we should be all right. He said if we were playing like we played at Anfield once, and I think the Thursday, and then we had to go and play Man United at home on the Sunday, and that felt like a ridiculous turnaround. This one doesn't seem as bad somehow, especially with the 2 home games as such.
No, absolutely, and to be honest with you, the fact that you ended up losing that game, I thought I was obviously happy about in a strange way. But I thought, well, if you had nicked an equaliser in the end, or if you had won that game, that's obviously just like horrible for us to then go into the Lions. Then after that, to put in all that effort and not get anything, I was like, oh, there's maybe like a small mental yardage that we can try and claw back there because they didn't win. But realistically, if you're a Leeds player and you're letting a defeat to Man City get you down mentally, you're probably in the wrong game, because at the end of the day, you should see Sunderland with the injury setup that we have at the moment and think, wow, well, this is an opportunity for 3 points. Let's just forget that game already.
We have shown we can bounce as well. Like we've lost 3, as I said, in 17, but we've actually played Arsenal at home recently, maybe like a few months back, about a month ago actually, and we got beat 4-0, and they battered us. They were just so much better. You actually gave them guys a game, didn't you? Especially at home, you drew the game, didn't you? 2-2. We were completely opposite. We've just been hammered by them twice. They're the only team that have done that, but they did do it. But we did actually react really well after that, and I believe we won the next game after. I believe so. Anyway. But we had a few winnable games and we got some good points. So we have shown we can react well. So I'm hoping. I actually do think we'll win, and I'm not one for predicting wins usually, but I actually do think we will beat you guys, just because of I do think, not on the beach as such, but I think your job for the season is kind of done. And obviously when you've got injuries on top of that, I do think it naturally. I think we just got fundamentally more to play for probably in the game. In truth, yeah. What do you think the actual scores be like? If I push you for a score.
So I'm leaning more to what you've just described there, but I'm not prepared to back Leeds. So I'm gonna go. Do you know what I'm gonna go? I'm gonna go 0-0. Is that horrible?
We had a 0-0 a few years ago, didn't we? You stopped us getting autos.
I was at that game, but I remember it was.
And there were a penalty we should have had. I swear one of your. I think didn't 09 like handball it out. I think even everyone in the dog was saying it as well, that should have been an handball.
It was as clear as day. No, yeah. I was at that game, so I remember it was a sinfully dull game. It was really, really bad, and it was just as you were kind of unraveling. So I remember.
Yeah, we were bottling at that point. We were in severe ball mode.
Yes, but it was just a crap game. But no, annoyingly, I can't envisage a scenario where we're scoring. So, and I don't want to predict you to win. So I'm just going to say, yeah, let's get out of there with the most boring 0-0 of all time and take the point.
I'm not like I could see that happening. I just think I think under the lights at Elland Road we've only lost one in 3 years under the lights at Elland Road.
Yeah, it's crazy that.
And that game was obviously the City game at the weekend, which to be fair I think we're pretty unlucky and we probably should have got something if I'm being totally honest. So I do think we'll probably win the game. Is my feeling. I think I'm on 2-0 Leeds just. But it might be, I could say 1-0 to be honest. I don't think we've won 1-0. No, we have. We beat Fulham 1-0 early in the season. But yeah. Anyway, I'll wrap up the show there. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that the chat will appreciate it as well. And obviously, good luck for tomorrow, or in a roundabout way, because I kind of want you guys to get beat.
No, my pleasure. And yeah, look, when you predicted a number of different wins there, I'll remember that. I might even clip it and record it and stick it on social media somewhere if we do end up nicking a win. But no, I'll if we both get a point, we'll both be happy and we'll shake hands and move on.
Fair enough. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. As always, as I said, if you could help the channel, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It does massively help the channel. And if you've just joined, we have been talking for half an hour, so you're more than welcome to switch back and watch the remaining sort of 30 minutes of chat as well. But other than that, I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Bye for now.